Hello, thank you for tuning into Radio Maria 91.3 FM. It is now time for Side by Side, where we discuss issues relating to conflict, peace, and security. I am Reverend Father Robert Achiaga. Cecil Egbele is here and will be very much part of the show today. Good morning, Cecil.
Yeah, good morning, Father.
All right. We are joined by a very special guest who will work side by side with us on the show to make our time together very profitable. I am talking about Nick Agule. He is a chartered accountant and a business intelligence consultant with 21 years unbroken oil and gas industry experience. He's a Catholic deacon working in the Diocese of Westminster. We are always happy to have you in the studio. You're welcome, Nick Agule.
Thank you very much, Father, and thank you to our listeners.
Cecil, okay, we are going to begin with the headlines, right?
Yes, we'll begin with the headlines. Meanwhile, welcome, Nick. Nice to have you in our studio.
Thank you so much, Cecil.
Okay, let's begin with the headline. Our guest will help us unpack the topic of the day, which is politics and security. But just before we get started, let's take a look at some headlines of interest. We'll begin with the foreign scene, where dozens were arrested over Champions League final chaos in Paris, and that's from the Punch newspaper. Crash site found after plane goes missing in Nepal with 22 on board, and that's according to The Guardian. Sri Lanka police tear gas students in fresh clashes. That's from the Daily Star newspaper.
Nick, you like football. I know that. Despite your very busy, tight schedule, you are always able to relax and watch your favorite club, Real Madrid. So, congratulations
Real
after
Madrid.
all. You won the Champions League. It's just that the celebrations were tainted with the chaos that unfolded in Paris after your club, Real Madrid, lifted the Champions League. But there is this headline here which has caught my attention. I'm sure it has caught your attention too, about Sri Lanka. Police tear gassing students in protests. The students are actually calling for the resignation of their president. Now, an unprecedented shortage of foreign exchange to import even the most basic supplies, including food, fuel, and medicines. This has led to severe hardships for the country's 22 million people. And the government, led by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, last month asked the International Monetary Fund for urgent financial assistance. I guess that must have been about more loans. The talks are ongoing. The country has defaulted on its $51 billion foreign debt. Its currency has depreciated by 44.2% against the US dollar this year. And while inflation has hit a record 33.8% last month. All of this put together mean that a bad economy is beginning to fuel national instability, doesn't it?
Yes, it is. Before I talk about Sri Lanka, I want to thank you for congratulating Real Madrid on the victory. And I also want to say that what happened in France, in Paris, on the Champions League night, goes to show that we have to take safety measures very seriously, especially when crowds are involved. And I'm saying that in the light of the incident that happened in Port Harcourt, where several lives were lost because crowd control measures were not put in place. So that's what happens if you let down the guard on that. And it's very important, especially in Nigeria, if you are organizing an event and you know there will be a lot of people coming, then you need to actually take safety measures to ensure that things are not happening.
Crowd control and football. We had our own experience when we played Ghana in the finals of the qualifiers for World Cup.
Yeah.
We lost in Abuja here, and the aftermath of that was the destruction of property.
Yeah.
You know, so it's something we should take serious.
It has to be taken very seriously because, like in Port Harcourt, we can see how fatal that has become. So many lives were lost unnecessarily, I would say, and unavoidably as well. Talking about Sri Lanka, this is a classic case of when leaders don't manage economies very well. And there's a line that goes through all of this. You see, in the modern world, in the 21st century, I think governments have to realize that the private sector runs economies better than government. Government need to begin to take the backstage in terms of running the economy. Governments should be regulators. They should ensure that things are working fine, but they have to let the actors in the economy to be the private sector, because private sector is the one that is able to unlock value using the resources in the country. And so as you can see, all the economic indices in Sri Lanka are pointing southwards. And the other thing I want to pick up from that story is the fact that the citizens aren't sitting down and taking all the punches. Citizens are out protesting. And that's very important for us as well in Nigeria. I think I would say Nigerians have resigned themselves.
Not just citizens, students.
Yes, exactly, who are leading this protest. And I recall I graduated in 1989. I graduated in December and not in June because we're out fighting the IBB government over SAP. And you hardly see students in the Nigeria of today coming out to do this protest. And I don't know what is happening to us, because these are the people that fight for freedoms.
Well, you know, there are those who will argue that the Nigerian state that we have today is not so friendly with, because normally protest should be part of political participation.
Correct.
But in Nigeria, it is understood differently, and people fear to come out for even the most peaceful of protests.
But remind me, what did the Yoruba students do some weeks back? Yeah, I think they occupied the streets in somewhere in Benin over the protest of the ASU strike or something.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely, and I went to Uniban, so yeah. So that's you.
Yes, I did.
Great Uniban.
Great.
Sorry, you're in the minority now.
Don't worry, I have my own constituency.
Yeah. So back to the point that I was making is that Nigerian citizens have become the Virgin Mary. They are telling the government that do unto us according to your will, without any fight back whatsoever. I was speaking to university students last week, or maybe week before last, and I said exactly what you have said, Father, that some people would think that NSAS is the way, but given the fact that the government of Nigeria rolled out the guns and shot point blank young people and killed them, I personally will not advise any young man to go out on the street protest in Nigeria. But there's a way, there's a decent, legitimate, legal and constitutional way that young people in Nigeria can protest, and that is with their voters' cards. So we have a situation where the youth in the north are very politically aware, while the youth in the south aren't. And time has come now that Nigerians need to speak with their votes. If we're not happy with what is happening in this country, let the millions of us, because if you look at it, in the 2019 general elections, there were 30 million votes that were cast. But Nigeria should have at least 100 million eligible voters. So what's happening to the other 70 million? They need to step up to the plate and let their voices be heard. When the politicians see that Nigerians are protesting with their vote, the politicians themselves are going to do better. Because I was speaking on a TV program a few weeks ago, I said, look, we look at countries like the UK, Canada, the US, and we say, oh, what a wonderful set of leaders they have. But if you look at it deeply, those leaders may be good people probably 20 to 30% of the time. The 70 to 80% of the time, they are delivering good governance because they are afraid of the people. They know that the people are going to protest at the ballot against them. And that's where Nigeria needs to come to. And so back to Sri Lanka, yes indeed, it's very good that the students are out protesting, and we hope that the government doesn't visit brutality on them. But what Sri Lanka needs is they need reforms. They just need to turn to a market-oriented economy, and then their problems will begin to be solved.
Let me just underline one of the very important points you made about Nigerian youth doing their own protest next year during the general elections with their voter cards. Everywhere in the world where democracy thrives, democratic accountability is a value that empowers people. So when leaders don't perform well, you wait for them.
Yeah.
If waiting will not upset stability,
Yeah.
you wait for them, and when it's time to hold them accountable, even the youngest among us with a voter card will be able to make a statement and hold the leader accountable. So we are looking at voting as a form of protest,
Yeah.
and that's good.
You are very correct, Father. Actually, the leaders know that we are waiting for them with our votes. They will do well. They will deliver good governance.
They will deliver
That's
good
what they will
governance.
do. Yeah.
All right, let's continue with our headlines, and meanwhile, let's come back home to Nigeria, where we start with public health and food security. From the Daily Trust, intrigues as rice farmers, processors fear resurgence of smuggling. That's the Daily Trust newspaper of yesterday. NCDC confirms 66 suspected monkeypox cases and 1 death. That's according to the Punch newspaper. On politics, peace, and security, don't use your communities as election battlefields, Group 1's politicians. That's according to the Punch newspaper. While talking governance, public policy, peace, and security, we start with insecurity. Insecurity, Zamfara relocates NYSC orientation camp to Gusau. That's the story from the Daily Trust newspaper. Army better equipped, motivated under Buhari, says the Chief of Army Staff. That's also according to the Daily Trust newspaper. Still on the Daily Trust, Buhari endorses African standby forces on terrorism. While talking about the stampede, which Nick just talked about, we have this one also from the Daily Trust that says, Wike to probe Port Harcourt stampede. And we'll take one more from the Punch newspaper, which says, Lagos continues crackdown, demolishes 7 buildings in Mushin, Lagos State.
Nick, a couple of interesting headlines bordering on politics, peace and security, governance policy, public policy, peace and security, and all that. But let's pick maybe one or two from here. The one on Ijaw communities. Not being turned into election battlegrounds. That's an interesting one, but maybe before possibly we come back to that one, let's move on to Army, better equipped, motivated under Buhari. Yes, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, declared that the Nigerian Army is now better motivated and equipped under President Muhammadu Buhari to accomplish its mandate of defending the country's territory and its people. He made this known in his closing remarks at the 2022 Nigerian Army Small Arms Championship held at the 3 Division of the Nigerian Army. By August 2021, that's last year, Buhari's defense allocations had hit 5 trillion naira. But over 11,420 Nigerians had been killed in 6 years. That's leading up to August last year. And then this year, we saw that the budget was also increased. But is this budgetary allocation, which might be the reason we're talking about the military being better motivated, and also the arrival of the Super Tucano jets and other equipment. Do all of this translate into a safer country, a more secure country? It doesn't look that way, does it?
I think you have a point there, Father. We as citizens, we don't have the background information as to what is going on in government offices and circles. So what we see as citizens is the result of all of that. So if the Chief of Army Staff says the military is better equipped, better funded, better motivated, we need to see that in terms of the results. And I will agree with you that the results are simply not there. I mean, a few days ago I was discussing with people. I said, look, there was a kidnap, a hijack of a plane that was flown to Uganda, to the Entebbe airport.
Yes.
Okay, and the Israeli security forces, the Israeli defense forces, flew thousands of miles, got to Entebbe, shot and killed the people who are holding these guys hostages, and they picked their people back to Israel. And very recently, the Americans did the same when they came all the way from the US and they came onto Nigerian soil, and they freed one American that was held hostage. Today in Nigeria, we have Nigerians that have been held hostage on Nigerian soil, on Nigerian sovereignty. They are in forests in the middle of Nigeria, in Kaduna, Zamfara. It's not like a Sambisa forest or anything. And these same defense forces, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Service Chiefs, the Inspector General of Police, they go to work, they work normally, they go home, they sleep, come to work the next day, and Nigerians are in this forest.
And are well motivated.
Yes, Nigerians are in this forest. These bandits even have the temerity to go and bring medical personnel into this forest to deliver a pregnant woman. Just think about what these Nigerians are going through. This is rainy season. They don't have shelter in that place. So the rains are pouring on them. How are they feeding in that place? You will expect a military that is well-funded, well-motivated to go and surround that forest and resolve that hostage situation, either by killing the bandits or arresting them, whichever choice they take. So we need to see the results of this motivation. And so far, we are not seeing the result because nobody is safe in this country. I mean, if you've not been kidnapped, it's probably because kidnappers haven't come for you. Because if they do come for you, nothing is going to stop them from kidnapping you. So we're living in a country where not only the fact that the insecurity is happening, but as citizens, we don't feel safe. If you ask me to get onto the Abuja-Kaduna road now, I will not go. Even if you put ₦1 billion for me in Kaduna and say go by that road, I'm not going to go by that road. And that doesn't give us any good sense of security. And it dampens enthusiasm of even the foreign investors that we quote. So I think we need to see results coming out from this motivation that the Chief of Army Staff is talking about.
I get your message. If the army at this point under President Muhammadu Buhari is really better equipped and better motivated, then the citizenry should be better secured and life should be much, much better. It should translate into a better country, generally speaking. Cecil, you have other headlines.
Yes, I have other headlines. And just to add to what you just said, military facilities should not be attacked by the same
bandits.
I will just end it there. All right, let's continue anti-corruption efforts. EFCC arrest ex-Zamfara Governor Yari over 84 billion naira accountant general fraud. That's according to the Punch newspaper. Talking on environment, security, and ecological peace, Osun residents lament pollution of water, land from gold mining activities. That's from the Punch newspaper. While from the Daily Trust, NIMET predict extreme heat in 10 northern states for 3 days. Let's move on to drug and human trafficking. Italy-based drug baron visiting Imo parents excrete heroin. That's according to the Punch newspaper. While the Daily Trust says, police arrest human traffickers in Mali and Burkina Faso. Quickly, let's touch on energy security, where the Punch newspaper says, cabals benefiting from petrol imports frustrating local refineries. That's according to the IPMAN. While Nigeria's subsidized petrol rated 8th cheapest in the world, cheapest globally. That's according to the Daily Trust newspaper. Robert?
You call me, I also call Nick.
Yes.
84 billion naira. That's mind-boggling. You first of all wonder, what is one person going to do with 84 billion naira? What does he want to do with it? I mean, this fits into the idea that was popularized by Karl Marx about primitive acquisition. It's mind-boggling. I mean, you're thinking about what 84 billion naira can do for citizens of a state. Good roads, less people will die from accidents. Good hospitals, you will save lives. Maternal mortality will be cut down. Infant mortality cut down. Employment, you can build factories. You can rehabilitate people. Education. Zamfara does not present statistics that show that its education system is robust by anywhere. So if you have 84 billion naira, what will you do with it?
Robert, I'm just wondering, where was this stocked? Is it in the account or in the house? Because we've seen pictures and videos of money stocked in house, heaps and all. So really, where was this 84 billion naira fund?
Don't ask Nick, not me.
Yes, if you ask me, now who I will ask? Okay, Nick.
Yes. So to answer your question quickly, the 84 billion goes into different places. If you take a walk around the city of Abuja, you see a lot of real estate with no occupants. That is part of it. That's they just buy houses and keep them. They are not interested in rent or anything. They just want to store the money. Part of the money is in bank accounts in this country.
Traceable.
Yes, traceable in this country. Part of the money is being laundered and taken abroad, and that is part of the reason why the exchange rate is always against the naira, because perpetually they are using the naira to look for foreign currencies so that they can take these monies abroad. So the monies are going to everywhere, but it depends on the approach of government. As a government, this thing can happen anywhere in the world if the government allow it. So I keep telling people that the plan of God for man, the plan of creation of God for man was in 4 stages. Stage 1, God created man. Stage 2, God gave man the law. And he gave man the law in terms of what man can do and what man cannot do. That is to tell us that man must be wrong with the law. If you don't run man with the law, you're not going to get man right. Okay? Number 3, man broke the law. So it is within us to take the easy way out, breaking the law. Number 4, there was consequence management. So when God came to the Garden of Eden, God didn't say, okay, man is a member of my political party, I'm creating man in my own image. Man is not a goat, so I'm going to treat man differently. No. God visited man with consequence management. Now, what's happening to countries like Nigeria? Number 1 is happening. We're here, citizens of Nigeria. Number 2 is happening. We've got the laws. In fact, Nigeria has got more laws than other countries. Like the UK doesn't have a constitution, doesn't have a written constitution. We have a codified constitution. Number 3, we are breaking the laws. So 1, 2, 3, we're just doing as man was designed. Okay. What is missing in Nigeria is number 4. Okay. Any country in the world where number 4 is missing is not going to do well. That's the fact. If you go to any country and you see prosperity, you see things working well, you see citizens obeying the laws, you see everybody behaving as if they are good people, okay? That means number 4 is happening big time there. Until we now have governments in Nigeria begin to do number 4, these stories are going to happen. And now, the humongous amounts we're talking about, 84 billion, Father, you're right, 84 billion is more than the annual budget of a lot of states in Nigeria. And that is the kind of money that someone takes in a single transaction. Because we're not talking about all of what the man has done while he's in office.
Allegedly.
Exactly. Here again, is man responding to the call of the devil. So, as in the case of Jesus, the devil takes them up to a high mountain and shows them the glory of all these billions, and they can't resist it. So they take 1 million, and the devil says, but that's not enough. You should have 10 million. Takes 10 million, says, no, have 100 million, 100 million. No, we should have 1 billion. They take 1 billion and say, come on, your mess have 10 billion. Do you understand? Then you say, oh, have you got $1 billion in dollars? You know, and then they go chasing after this thing. So this thing is just their response to the call of the devil. But like I said, it could probably happen elsewhere, but the structures and the systems and the institutions that leaders over time have built in those places prevents things like that from happening. And this comes back to us in Nigeria. It's not everybody who is in public office that is a leader. There are some people in public offices that are not leaders. It behoves on us Nigerians, again, using our votes, because we know good people. Father, I know you're a good person.
Oh,
yeah.
Glory.
So I should use my vote. Yeah, if you step forward to stand for election, to vote you.
I don't even have the intention.
No, I'm just giving it by way of example. You
Please use
understand?
me.
Yes, I should try and get you into public office to give you a platform where you can actually get this country moving. But Nigerians are not interested. You understand? I was with a group of university students, like I said. I asked them one question. I said, do they know who recruited their vice chancellor, who was sitting next to me? And when they didn't know, I told them their vice chancellor was recruited by the governing board of the university, the highest decision-making board. And I asked them, assuming the recruitment of the vice chancellor was left to the women selling granuts, the Okada riders, and those jobless people, would they have got a competent vice chancellor like that? They said no. But I said that's the situation in Nigeria. When it comes to recruiting the vice chancellor of Nigeria, the president, we, the educated people, we say no, we don't want to get involved. It's a dirty thing. So we leave all these chains and all of that to recruit presidents and give us, recruit governors and give us, recruit members of the National Assembly and state assemblies and give us. We are in our palatial homes watching these events on the TV. So until we stop all that and step into the fray and begin to have a say in who leads this country, because look, we make a mistake. We might think, okay, I'm doing okay, I have a good job, I have a good business, I'm looking after my family, I have my car, my home, and all of that. All that is going to fail if Nigeria fails. So you cannot be on a ship and think that your corner of the ship is doing well. If the ship sinks, everybody is going to sink, including that your corner. So that's what we need.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that you highlighted the arrest of the ex-Zamfara governor Yari, over 84 billion naira, and you frame it in terms of leadership failure, and you have laid out the consequences of leadership failure. And I just want to touch on the point you made about our people being empowered enough to be able to produce leadership that is true, is genuine, and that is efficient. Plato had written so much about politics and different kinds of government, mobocracy, theocracy, aristocracy, democracy. He showed so much disdain for democracy, and his argument seems to tally with yours, that democracy will be the best form of government if the masses who vote people into offices have the knowledge that is required to be able to discern what they need in those leaders and what has to be done. They have the courage to be able to set aside their selfish ends in order to look at the common good, which means, much as we may celebrate the fact that democracy gives power to the masses, we must be worried about the quality of those masses, which means if we just leave thugs to be the ones who go out there to vote, they can be manipulated They would not even vote according to their own long-term interest. If we leave it in the hands of just anybody, we will just have any kind of leader. But I guess the other end of this argument would be that people who are going to vote in 2023 should understand that the only way the democratic value, the power of democracy will work for their good is if they vote without being induced, if they are deliberate about the change they need, if they are able to see the future clearly and so vote according to what future they want for themselves and their children. Until we have people who vote competently, democracy will always produce the kinds of leaders that will fail society over and over again. And the problem is, you wonder, why is it that someone who has proven to be a failure in the past comes back and is still elected by the masses? I think your explanation fits in perfectly.
Yes, so you're perfectly correct, Father. There are two levels. On the one hand, democracy doesn't always get it right. For instance, if you go to any typical state in Nigeria and say, the federal, and we want to do a vote, the federal allocation that comes from Abuja every month, should we share it to citizens so that everybody takes their cash away? Or should we give it to the governor to deliver good governance for all of us? You will know the result of the vote. The vote will be that, let us share the money. That's what, but is that the right decision? That's not the right decision. Because you really need that money in one central pool so that it can be used for good governance, deliver good governance for everybody. So that's one level where democracy may not give you the best results. But something else happens. If you go to societies that have broken free from the shackles of leadership failures we're speaking about, you will discover that there are three layers in a society. You have the lower class, who are the masses because they are just interested in what they will eat, the basic physiological needs. They don't really care about things like democracy. They are even ready to say their votes for 500 naira. You have the upper class who are very happy with the status quo because the status quo is what has made them billionaires and they wouldn't want to distort anything. The soul of society lies with the people in the middle. They are the professionals. They are the ones that have it all to lose, but they are the ones that say, no, we have to fight to take back control. You understand? If you think about the likes of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Lee Kuan Yew, they fall into that category. And that is why we're having a problem in Nigeria. The middle class of Nigeria don't want to get involved. They simply don't want to get involved. If the schools are bad, they find a way to send their children abroad. If the hospitals are bad, they find a way of going abroad for their health care. If security is bad, they look for mopo and all of that to be guarding them and their families. You know, so if there's no water, they sink their own borehole. If there's no light, they just set up their own generator or their own solar system. They don't want to get involved. And so time has come where this middle have to understand that this country is going to sink with all of us on board, except they step up to the plate and educate the masses to vote right. Because the masses listen to us. We all have villages. Imagine all of us going back to our villages and telling our people, hold on, hold on, hold on. You've been voting on party basis for so many years, nothing has happened. You've been voting individuals that have been recycled and they have been delivering pain. Now look here, and they start pointing these people out. Do you understand? That is going to bring change at that different level.
Now, one other headline here that I think you should give us your thoughts on. Cabals benefiting from petrol imports, frustrating local refineries. That's according to the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. And also another allied headline which says, Nigeria's subsidized petrol rated 8th cheapest globally. You have been in this industry for donkey years. Help us make sense of this. You don't know whether to rejoice because Nigeria's petroleum at delivery at petrol stations is 8th cheapest. Or you don't know whether to cry because cabals are benefiting from petrol imports, frustrating local refineries, which I feel being torn left and right. Please prevent me from being torn apart.
Yes, please don't be torn apart. So this is one issue that bedevils this country. Because what we're talking about now is that Nigeria's total annual budget, probably of about 12 trillion. Okay, now it's 17 trillion. But then, if you look at how much Nigeria earned last year, we earned about 5.5 trillion. We earned less than 6 trillion last year. And this year, the National Assembly has already approved that we should spend 4 trillion on this petrol subsidy thing. So just imagine a country that is spending over 80% of what they are earning on one item, and that is petrol. The issue here is two things in the headlines that I will address. The issue of cabals preventing local refining from happening. I totally reject that. I reject that because we have a president who is also a commander-in-chief. We have all the structures at the federal level. And if a president realizes that a cabal is carrying on acts of sabotage to stop local refining, which he thinks is the way to go, then he should visit the cabals with the full weight of the federal might. He has all the security agencies at his disposal. Why is he not unleashing them on these cabals? Because they say a problem known is a problem half solved. So if he knows that that is really the cause of this issue, then he should go after them. Now, on the second level, which is our subsidized petrol being the 8th cheapest in the world, I don't have the data to say yes or no to that. But I know that our petrol, the cost of our petrol is shrouded in mystery. Because what do you mean by subsidy? What you mean by subsidy is that when we import petrol, let's say the landing cost of petrol is 250, okay? And government says it must be sold at 165. So then it means the difference between what it costs us to bring it in and what we are selling is the subsidy. But the problem is nobody transparently proves to Nigerians that the landing cost is this. Nobody transparently shows to Nigerians the total consumption of petrol every given day in Nigeria. And then you hear the likes of the Customs Controller General, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, the Inspector General of Police, the Chief of Defense Staff throw their hands in the air and say, we are unable to stop the smuggling of petrol across the borders. You understand? So what then that means is that Nigeria is not only subsidizing petrol for Nigerians, it's also subsidizing petrol for the entire West African region. Wow. Where this thing is going across the borders. Do you understand? But there's a simple solution to this. What is the solution? Back to the point I raised earlier, Nigeria, like Sri Lanka, needs to turn to market-oriented economy, where the government is not a participant, government is only a regulator, and then government allows the private sector to come to run the economy. So for instance, when we're talking about refineries, we have 4 refineries in Nigeria now. These 4 refineries are being owned and controlled by the government. Okay? If the government just lets go these refineries to the private sector, I can assure you that the private sector will bring in the money, the technology, and the expertise, and they will get these refineries running. And if these refineries are running, petrol can actually sell for less than 165 naira in this Nigeria.
Nick, you know, many Nigerians may not be fascinated by your proposition that the private sector take over the refineries. And here is the reason. One of the very important sector is the power sector. much of it has been privatized. Look where we are. In Kabusa now, sometimes in a week you get, let me talk Kabusa.
You won't get any power, yeah.
You know, but much of it has been privatized. And yet, look where we are. So what really is the problem? If not that there are a few people who have responsibility for implementing policies that make for an efficient market-driven economy. And yet, because that market-driven economy will work to their disfavor, they choose rather not to implement that. Anyway, that's...
No, I wanted to say something on what you said. I hear this all the time. Anytime I advocate for the market-driven economy, people bring in the power. Power is not a good example. And I can give the reasons why it's not a good example. The better example is this, telecommunications.
Okay, if we are, let us be stayed on this issue just a bit. So, one of the reasons people go to power is because power is something we consume on a daily basis. It is something that has received a lot of budgetary allocations over the years. It is something every government, every group of people aspiring to take political office, campaign that they are going to be able to deliver on. It is something which has influenced the voter decisions of many Nigerians. It has remained a subject of hope for many years. Now, go to oil. We have refineries. Now, regardless of the complications of what it takes to run those refineries, the ordinary citizen on the streets there tells you, if you can remove oil from the ground here and put it in this company and it will bring out petroleum for me to use, why do you take it outside the country, get it refined, and then bring it back? The explanation just wouldn't make sense to anybody. So if you have the power sector that is a bit more complicated, you will need to first of all create power generation capacity, which is industrial, which is what also requires special skills, human capital, That would take more time. So for me, an ordinary citizen, we already have the refineries. What is left to be done is remove the natural resource, put it in there, let it become what I need to use. If that cannot work, then it's difficult to explain to me how privatization...
Okay, so let me answer that briefly before I go into the other two issues you have raised. The reason why the government-owned refineries are not working is because government is not meant to be a businessman in the 21st century. In the years past, it was only government that had the money to do all these things. But we're now in a global economy where the likes of Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates and all of that are even richer than some countries. They're actually richer than Nigeria. So money is now, the capital is now in private hands. So you need to bring them in. But let me quickly touch on the two issues you raised. I was about to say that this telecoms is a better example on how the private sector can unleash value out of an economy. I don't know if you are old enough, but I was old enough to know that to make a phone call in Nigeria when I was growing up needed me to go to NITE office and queue up.
Sure.
Okay, sometimes in the midnight to try and place a call. You buy those cards, you put them in, you see your money chopping, the call is not connected. If you wanted a phone, like in Abuja, they had the Note 9 Note phones. It would cost you like 200,000 of money of those days to get that phone. The government was pumping money into NITE, just like you are talking about power sector now. They were pumping money into NITE. NITE was delivering excuses to Nigerians instead of phones, to the extent that a minister of communication came on national television to say that telephone is not for the poor.
For the poor.
Okay? Fast forward to privatization. Comes in the MTNs and co. Okay? And now this phone is in the hands of villagers in all villages in Nigeria at no price. At no price. When MTN came in initially, their starter pack was 50,000. I know that I bought it, I was in Port Harcourt. And then when the other competitors came in and they started jostling for market share, now you can get a SIM card for even free, isn't it? And you can connect immediately onto a phone and you use it at a fraction of the cost. So this is how the private sector can actually bring value. Now, telecoms from less than 1% under 90 of our GDP is now contributing 15%. The private sector has brought in more than $100 billion to invest in this sector in Nigeria. Think about all the jobs that have been created, directly and indirectly, and the ease with which we are now communicating. How is power different? Power is different because power sector privatization wasn't done well. And why was it not done well? There are 3 stages in power, like you already said. You generate the power, you transmit the power, and you distribute the power. Generation and transmission were privatized. The generation and distribution were privatized. Transmission is not, and it's a bottleneck. Because we have a government that doesn't have money, the government is borrowing to even pay salaries, they've not been able to increase the capacity of the transmission. Now, generation cannot generate more than transmission can carry.
Yeah.
And distribution can only distribute what transmission has given them. And so if that transmission capacity is still small, then you can see that the other 2 privatizations aren't going to work. It is akin to saying we gave MTN the license, but insisted that MTN must use United mask to deliver telephones to Nigerians. Would it have been successful? Not at all. So this is the reason why. So if the government wants to do it right, the government should privatize the entire power value chain. Generation, transmission, and distribution. And then we can begin to see results.
We discuss these things on side by side because ultimately they're about human security, the welfare of citizens. I think we have a couple of other headlines left.
We have a couple of other headlines left for the Robert, but when you're talking about Kabusa and electricity, and Fana was talking about generation, transmission, and distribution, I remember a chat I had with Aliu Jelani, the DG of the Nigeria automotive industry. He's released the first electric car in Nigeria, and many people have been asking, how is it going to be powered? Well, we really don't have power. But also remember that generation company tell us that they generate so much than, like you say, the transmission grid can carry. So some people are suggesting that, okay, this power generated can be sent to, because the DG automotive industry is talking about building electric charging points around the country. So felt like, okay, this power generated can be sent to this channel so that these electric cars can actually work. Because right now I'm wondering what's running through his mind. Very laudable idea, but execution is what I don't know.
Yeah, the power can be generated, but after generation, it needs to be carried. And transmission are those high tension wires we see all over. They're all over the nation because they are taking power from where it's being generated to where to be used. And if the government is still holding on to that, and government is not increasing capacity in that sector, then all efforts are going to be in vain. That's just what it is. As simple as that, but you know, sometimes simple things
get complicated.
Okay, let's move on with our headlines.
I don't complicate the headlines.
I will try not to complicate the headlines. Let's just take these very few ones and then I'll wrap up the headlines. Let's talk about terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, violent crimes, and other threats. We start with one from the Daily Post, where abductors of the Abuja-Kaduna train passengers withdraw threats and issue fresh ultimatum. Can PFM film as gunmen kidnap Methodists, prelates, and others in Abia? That's according to the Punch. And also from the Punch, 4 feared killed as Lagos cultists clash and rob residents. 4 siblings nabbed for cultism, murder. Ogun State government blames parents. Also from the Punch. Still on the Punch, Rivers Church mourns, traces victims' families. Club shot after stampede. And still from the Punch, Nasarawa bandits kill ex-commissioner, abduct daughters. From the Nation, Okada ban, police allay fears over planned motorcyclist protest. Okada ban again, this time from the Punch, Lagos command deploys policemen to avert breakdown of law. We move on to Daily Trust, where security outpost sets ablaze as motorists kill 3 Okada riders in Abuja. Still staying on the Daily Trust, Cameroonian militants invade Nigeria, gone down 20. And our last story today on the headlines, still on the Daily Trust, says explosion rocks another beer parlor in Kogi State.
The security outpost that was set ablaze by Okada riders yesterday belongs to same global estate. That's not far from Kabusa. I was actually on my way out of Kabusa yesterday when I saw many cars turning back and waving at me to also turn back. And Cecil, in that situation, I will also turn back.
Yes.
So I turned back, exited the road before I asked what was happening. Please, sometime try to imitate me.
He says he won't travel Kaduna Road even for a millionaire, I remember.
So I think what happens was that a motorist had knocked down an Okada man at Sunnyvale. And the man continued, he didn't stop. And while trying to move away from Okada people who were chasing him, he ended up knocking down more Okada men. Unfortunately, 3 people lost their lives. I was informed that because of the heavy crowd of Okada men that were after him, he had to go into Sem Global. And the angry Okada men set ablaze the security post. But we thank God that security agents were informed in time. They arrived in time and they were able to quell what seemed to be like mob violence. The situation, they took control of the situation. I don't have further details than this. But we pray that the souls of those people who died in that whole event would rest in perfect peace. I'm interested in the Cameroonian militants who invaded Nigeria and gunned down 20 people. We're talking about the militants of Ambazonia. That's a separatist group in southwest Cameroon. They have killed at least 20 people in a community in Boki local government area. Not long ago, Senate Deputy Minority Leader Emmanuel Boacha raised the alarm over how this group usually would come from Cameroon and attack some villages in Taraba State. And some residents of Manga community were affected recently. I guess not much had been done. In Boki, for instance, they are used to once in a while seeing these militants come into Nigeria, either to come relax and enjoy themselves or cause trouble and go. But I guess this reactivates the whole narrative about how secure our borders are and how we are manning our borders. In some parts of Nigeria, where we share borders with other countries, people can easily cross into Nigeria and go out of Nigeria at will. We just hope that our borders will become better manned and border communities will become more secure.
Yep.
Okay, we will take a short break, and when we come back, we'll begin our discussion on politics and security. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. You have been listening to Side by Side. And now, it is time to begin our discussion on politics and security in earnest. Again, our guest is Nick Agule. Now, Nick, the party primaries for state and national assembly offices have come and gone. In fact, the main opposition party, PDP, has gone as far as conducting its primaries for the office of president. As one who has shown keen interest in Nigeria's politics and followed these events closely, would you say the party primaries have been peaceful so far? Because it is usually the conflict and peace and security sides of issues that we like to focus on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, the political environment is heating up. And to answer your question directly, I have not heard of any widespread violence since this party primary started at all levels, which for the PDP culminated in the presidential primaries over the weekend. And I only hope and pray that it should continue like that into the main political season come next year. In fact, the political season is already started. So from now till when we have the vote next year, things should continue at this level, where there will be no violence, there will be no anarchy, and people should be allowed to come out and exercise their franchise by voting without fear of their own personal security. So, yeah, the political class and the security agencies, I believe, must be commended that so far we've not had any widespread reports of security breakdown or violence across the country.
Yes, that's good news. And when it's good news, we want to probe further because we want to know what was responsible for the overwhelmingly or generally peaceful conduct of these primaries. We have witnessed primaries in the past that were marked by assassinations, by thuggery, by people fighting over money. There might have been sharing of money, but maybe it was done in a way that was peaceful. I do not know. So, do we give the credit to the candidates, or do we give the credit to the security agents, or do we give the credit to the political parties? By the way, kudos to whoever was involved in delivering peaceful conduct of primaries. But just some emphasis. Let's highlight where really things worked well.
Well, I think we can give kudos to all the stakeholders that you have mentioned.
Okay.
Because it has to take all of them to deliver not only a credible but peaceful electoral process, which in this case we're at the primaries level. The other side also to me is the electoral law. The electoral law has been getting better and better over time, and the 2022 electoral law has given INEC a lot of powers that have also made them to wield the big stick on parties and all of that. So everything is in the mix, and we can only hope that it continues like that. And I mean, this should give a lot of confidence to Nigerians in terms of voter apathy, because a lot of the people who sit at home watching their own leaders being elected by some other persons is because they fear for their own personal security. They don't want to come out. They believe that if they come out, they'll be shot or there'll be some sort of violence and all of that. So this peaceful conduct of primaries so far should be a very good pointer to the fact that people should start, if they have not yet, heading to the nearest registration center to register and have their PVCs ready, so that in 2023 they will have a voice in who leads us. It's not just okay to be complaining on WhatsApp, Facebook, or other social media platforms when we didn't participate in the process that actually elected these leaders we're complaining about. So it's a good omen, and we hope it continues.
You are an indigene of Benue State. So I would like you to take you back to Benue State and hear your take on the intercourse between politics and security in that state. You know, there are still thousands of displaced persons in camps, with many villages abandoned, and that has affected famine, and it portends that some danger as regards food security. Relations between herders and indigenous farmers have not been good for a while now. That is to be modest about it. And there are many security threats in Benue. Sometimes flashes of cultists. Those areas around Katsanala, local government, are still not as peaceful as one would want them to be. Now, in this whole mix, there are people who say plainly that the security problem in Benue State is all political. Do you share that point of view?
I don't share that point of view because for me, the cardinal objective of government as enshrined in our constitution is the provision of security of lives and property and also welfare to Nigerian citizens. So it shouldn't matter whether it is politics, it is ethnicity, it is herders, it is the locals or anybody. A government should face a gunman regardless of who that gunman is. Is he holding a gun because of a political agitation? Is he holding it because of a religious cause? Is he holding it because he's fighting over land? Is he holding it up because he has any objective? Shouldn't matter to government. Like you look at the recent case in the US, a gunman enters a primary school and begins to shoot the little kids. It never mattered to the government who that gunman was or what was his motive. The security stormed the place, condoned off the place, and resolved the situation, which in this case was killing the man. So he had a choice of surrendering or getting killed. So Nigerian security agencies, as led by the commander-in-chief, should go after all gunmen and all those who are perpetrating insecurity in Nigeria, regardless of their motive. We shouldn't bother whether it is politics or like I was having a discussion with some people a couple of days, and they were telling me these attacks that are said to be from herders. Oh, they are not from herders, they are from the locals and all of that. And I said, does it matter? It doesn't matter whether the attackers are herders or they are locals. A government that we have all submitted our own sovereignty to, so that they can run the country on behalf of all of us, should face those gunmen. So in Nigeria, we have situations where there are attacks on citizens and there is no response from the security agencies. I was watching a video clip of one of the Chibok girls. In fact, two of them that have been ferried to the US and are now graduates. And she was saying, look, when the bandits took these little girls in the trucks, there were 3 trucks. One of the trucks broke down, and the bandits had to stop so that they would fix that broken down. All that time, our security were not chasing after them to catch up with them and resolve the situation. So for me, that's what just needs to happen. We need a commander-in-chief who will be up to his responsibilities to protect Nigerian citizens. When a man is facing me with a gun, it shouldn't matter to the commander-in-chief what his motive is. He has to resolve the situation and keep me alive. So there is a total breakdown in terms of the command structure of our security forces. If the security were up to their jobs, then some of these leafers that are perpetrating all sorts of insecurity around will advise themselves to go and do something else. If you know you kidnap someone and it's either you are killed or you are arrested in the process, you wouldn't go kidnap again now. But now, you kidnap people, as we're talking about the train hostages now. Imagine the number of days they have been in one forest. And our soldiers, our Air Force, Navy, police are not going there to resolve the situation. Then what will stop them from doing it again? So for me, government just needs to do their work. We shouldn't bother about the motives.
Okay, it is not political for you, but let's step away from Benny. Let's talk politics and security generally. At the theoretical level, without necessarily even coming down to the concrete life situation. You can do that if you are able. Can people make some political gains out of insecurity?
Yes, people actually use insecurity as part of political gains. Some of the genesis of the insecurity we have in Nigeria have emanated from politics. Because the politicians armed some youths to be able to fight for territory and take control, because there were times in Nigeria where you had things like ballot box snatching, you had cases of assassination of political opponents, you had cases of violence that scares voters away and all of that. So politicians are funding some of that. And the problem is that when they arm these youths and the elections are over, the youth hardly return the arms that they were given. And the politicians usually stop funding the youth once they have won the elections, and the youth now have to use these arms to help themselves, since their source of funding has been cut off. So yes, that angle is there, but we have a commander-in-chief he has two cardinal objectives. One, provide security of lives and property. Two, provide welfare to Nigerians. He should be up to his responsibility as commander-in-chief. If they see a gunman, it shouldn't matter whether this gunman was armed by politicians, or he armed himself, or he's one of the bandits that came from Chad or from Libya or somewhere else. It shouldn't matter to our security. They should face all gunmen that are attacking Nigerian citizens and either take them down or arrest them. To me, that is where the whole thing should be. And it shouldn't matter whether they belong to an ethnic group or a political party or whatever their motive is. You can't harm Nigerians, and our security will be looking and doing nothing about it.
Okay, let's go national. There have been separatist agitations here and there in Nigeria. Look at the southwest. Look at the southeast, IPOB, and then come to other security issues. Last week, Kaduna State took the center stage. It has actually taken the center stage of insecurity for a while now. But around last week, Governor El-Rufai informed the public that there were even new terrorist groups who were settling down comfortably in Kaduna State, So we are having all these challenges. And so because of these agitations, the insecurity challenges, people feeling being left out, the feeling of alienation politically, ethnically, and all of that, some people feel that 2023 might be the defining year for Nigeria's corporate existence, for Nigeria's stability, for Nigeria's turnaround. That if we don't get it right in 2023, things might just take an upturn, a downswing that will be very, very unfavorable for the citizens. So 2023, politics of 2023, do you think that's also a defining moment for the country?
I think people who say 2023 is a defining moment for Nigeria are right in what they think. I think if we look at what has happened in the past few years in Nigeria, Nigeria is a country that has now been left at a cliffhanger, and anything can push us over. Just anything can push us over. Actually, Nigeria is a country that God has blessed so much, because the kind of things that happen in this country and the corporate existence of this country is still held intact. It's amazing. In other nations, half of what happens in Nigeria takes place there, and everything goes pear-shaped. So, but we don't have to take God's grace for granted, the fact that He has been keeping us intact despite everything. So 2023 is a defining moment, and that is the reason why all Nigerians, this should not be a matter of I'm not interested, I'm not involved, I leave it to other people. All of us must be interested. There are 70 million Nigerian potential voters that didn't participate in the national elections the last time. those 70 million must come out and be part of this process. They must speak with their own voices, and their voices will be heard through their votes. Having said that, let me now talk about agitation, separatist agitations and all of that. First and foremost, the Nigerian Constitution does not have provision for referendum. Without a referendum, you cannot legitimately seek for separation, except you want to do that by force, which is what the likes of IPOB are doing. And you can see that the results are disastrous. Because every day, lives are being lost in the Southeast. Even though IPOB says they are not the ones doing it, but the question is who is doing it? You know, so if you are trying to agitate for sovereignty on behalf of a people, and those people are losing their lives daily, then it really wonders what is it that is actually your objective. But now, there are other things that can be done. The Southeast has 5 states, and 5 states means they have 15 senators, and probably 100 or maybe close to 100 House of Rep members. Now, or maybe if not up to, they will have a significant number of House of Rep members. The question is that, why hasn't in the 22 years of our democracy, 23 now actually, that the National Assembly caucus from the Southeast in Nigeria have not tabled a bill in the National Assembly to make provision for referendum in our constitution? Even if they think they will fail, at least they have done it. You understand? You have to take that kind of step, because you won't even know other states that will support you in that agitation. That is number one. Number two, the primaries elections that have been happening, which we'll be speaking about. Okay, look at the presidential primaries of the PDP. You have someone like Senator Pius Anyin from the Southeast. He stood for president, and he got 14 votes. Do you understand? Probably Southeast had probably like 100 votes, because it was 1 vote per local government. And there are an average of 20 local governments in each state. So the 5 states in the Southeast, their total votes would have been up to like 100 or close to 100. But they didn't even give those votes to their own man. Do you understand? And they are talking about agitation, separation. You are talking agitation, but you are giving your vote to someone in another region, in a region that you are complaining about, that are subjugating you. Do you understand? So we need to do more than this talking and saying we are agitating. You have to take concrete steps to it. And I have said, use the constitutional way, which is change the constitution to provide for a referendum, because let me tell you, the Southeasterners are the ones that are more spread all over the country. It cannot take one man, Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB, to say, I want to return all the Southeasterners in Nigeria back to the Southeast. Have they agreed with you? Is it every Southeasterner that is in every part of Nigeria that has agreed that they want to go back to the Southeast and form their own nation? But that is what a referendum will do. So if you put a referendum, these people will have the choice of saying yes or no. And if a Southeasterner is in Abuja...
So you don't speak for them, they speak for themselves.
Exactly. They speak for themselves. If there's a Southeasterner in Abuja with properties in Abuja, his business is thriving and everything, and he votes that I want to leave all that and go back to the Southeast, then you will grant that referendum. Do you understand? But the Southeasterners all over Nigeria haven't spoken. Is Nnamdi Kanu speaking? IPOB speaking? Does that speak for the millions of Southeasterners all over Nigeria?
It certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to open the lines as we continue the conversation. So for our listeners who would want to be part of this conversation, you can reach us on 081 084 47518. Cecil, I think you should call out this number. Your voice will sound better than mine.
Okay,
As
please.
Uniben will understand.
Exactly. All right, our phone lines are open. Is open now. 081 084 47518. You can call us or you send us SMS or WhatsApp message.
Now, when you call, you can talk to us about the security situation in your community or locality. You can also weigh in on the discussion so far in the studio here, or you can share with us some peace-building efforts taking place in your community. We very much want to know that there are people who are working for peace in your community and to know what they are doing. Nick, I was going to ask you, you are an economist, I believe. So as you pay attention to political developments in view of 2023, you will be considering our our economic fortunes by 2020.
The first caller was right in terms of the fact that we have people coming in from neighboring countries or from the Sahel region where there has been insecurities, failed nations like Somalia, Afghanistan, Libya, and all of that, and just strolling into Nigeria, committing all sorts of atrocities, and strolling out without our security doing anything about it. And in fact, we've been speaking about the fact that Nigerians are being held on Nigerian sovereign soil in forests within Nigeria, and it beggars belief that our security are actually going to bed and sleeping and having a sound sleep when they know that Nigerian citizens are in this forest. I think the dignity of the uniform of the Nigerian armed forces is being trampled on the ground, and it is time for them to stand up and just do something about this. We cannot have Nigerian citizens being held hostage, not in a foreign land, on Nigerian soil, and our security are not carrying out a 24/7 security operation in that forest until they release Nigerian citizens.
Yeah, you emphasize the fact that the military should be up and doing, but you know we operate a system where the military works under civilian control. So don't you think that the people who should bear the brunt of responsibility and if blame, yes, them too, should be the civilians, the political class who are empowered by the Constitution to give orders, to hold military personnel accountable, to equip them, to motivate them. Don't you think the buck stops at the table of the civilians who are given constitutional powers to control the military? If the head has headache and is not okay, the rest of the body will suffer. So I think that the people that we should focus on really should be the civilian leadership. For instance, a chief of army staff, that office is not occupied by one who has worked themselves to the top. It's by appointment. It is a civilian leader who appoints all the chiefs, the service chiefs. It is the civilian leader who gives certain orders. So I think that in states, for instance, governors are the chief security officers of their states and not the police commissioner, not the IG of police. So while we talk about what the military is doing or not doing, I think it is more important to talk about what the civilians who have responsibility for the effectiveness and efficiency of our security agencies are doing or not doing. That's my view.
No, I think you are very correct, Father, in terms of what you have said. But there are two levels to this thing. So on the one level, I agree with you wholeheartedly that the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, who is the President of Nigeria, must live up to his responsibility because he swore to an oath of office that he will defend Nigeria and provide security to the citizens and to their properties and also their welfare. But the reason why I'm talking about the military is that many times in the past, numerous times, this Commander-in-Chief has invited the military high command to the villa, had a meeting with them, and giving them a charge to go forward and clear Nigeria of these bandits and insecurities all over the place.
In a matter they are not trained for, because the military actually is not even trained for law and order internally.
So that's another level we are talking about. What is happening in Nigeria now is a war. We just have to be very clear about it. It's gone beyond police matters. When you have gunmen invade Nigerian territory take Nigerians hostage and are demanding for ransom, or they are killing Nigerians, we are now in the territory of the military. Because the police are to deal with civil duties of crime fighting and control. This is no longer crime in the simple sense of criminal activity. This is now an insurgency. Yeah? These are people invading the territorial boundaries of Nigeria. You understand? Just like the caller was talking about. Here is the military coming in. And the military high command in Nigeria, they have...
I'm sure INEC officials would also be listening. Nick, I think first of all, let's be happy that the caller has taken an interest in the political fortunes of his people. And secondly, he is not talking about how they, as civilians who are not involved in the process directly, are going to make sure they are home. He is talking about INEC. And on this show, we have always said, allow the rightful civil authorities, state authorities, to take charge of processes. So we also commend him for that. And I think if that happens, if INEC delivers, then eventually we are going to have a peaceful primaries conducted in Dekina. I like his passion for the fortunes of his people in Dekina.
But I hope he's going to back up that passion with having a voter's card.
And actually going there to vote.
So if you are still listening to us,
yes,
our caller from Dekina, I hope you have a voter's card. And that, as Father said, you are actually going to also step out to vote next year. And also, if you have a voter's card, I hope you are also politically educating people around you to also have their own voter's card. Because what is happening now is that this is the season for politicians. In this political electoral cycle that we're happening now, what is happening now is the season for politicians. Our own season is going to come next year. And that is when we will teach the politicians a bitter lesson if they don't get it right this time.
Okay, we have so many calls coming in. Unfortunately, we are out of time. So this is where we draw the curtain. We have come to the end of this edition of Side by Side. I must say a very big thank you to our guests, our able guest, as we say it in our country. Nick Agule is a chartered accountant and business intelligence consultant with 21 years of unbroken oil and gas industry experience. He's also a deacon working in Westminster. And our listeners, thank you for joining us always on this program. We are here because you are there. The next edition of Side by Side will come your way on Wednesday, the 1st of June at 11 a.m. Until then, keep listening to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. I am Reverend Father Robert Achiaga.
And sitting beside Father Robert on Side by Side is Cecile Egbeli. Thank you very much for being with us. Let's do this again on Wednesday.
Peace be with you.